ASAP Rocky has dropped his first album since 2018 with his brand new album, Don't Be Dumb. And the question that's on everyone's mind is ASAP Rocky back? Especially after for nearly a decade, ASAP Rocky has been pump faking. It is the number one album coming out of this weekend. Don't Be Dumb is making noise immediately, whether it was his pop ups, performing live on SNL, performing on Amazon Live. ASAP Rocky is making sure that if you're anywhere in the music world keeping up with the up to date news, you're hearing about this album, Don't Be Dumb. But why did it take so long? Why are so many people going crazy and are so passionate about hearing ASAP Rocky return? It's because this is one of the longest rollouts we've seen from a major mainstream artist actually coming to fruition. This album has existed under other names, it's existed in multiple different forms, but this album, according to ASAP Rocky, is 80 to 90% music that he has created within the last year now. The last time we heard from him back in 2018 was the experimental album in his catalog called Testing, where ASAP Rocky, who was known for his psychedelic rap sound, but also known for bringing a different type of fashion focused culture to the hip hop world in New York, was someone who had become popular off of his music and at that time was seen sort of boxed into just being another rapper. He took that as an opportunity to quote unquote test into new styles of music for him. So he released an experimental album called Testing that was generally received as a bold idea, but many people found it to be somewhat of a messy execution. Now, I personally love this album. This is one of my favorite projects that ASAP Rocky has put together. It has several of my favorite songs from him, whether it's ASAP Forever, Praise the Lord, or The Kids Will Be Fine. This album was one that maintained his presence in the music world, particularly the hip hop world, but that experimental vibe that he came with is something that you have to expect is not going to be universally accepted. Now, since this album, so many things have gone on in the music world beyond just hip hop. And even he himself has gone through multiple transformations, whether it's becoming a father, whether it's having been arrested and been in a major case that people were following closely. This album was seemingly a moment in time that concluded the ASAP Mob era, as post this time, the major group ASAP Mob became quieter than ever. At this moment in 2018, this was a huge year for hip hop and the world alike. In hip hop, the same exact day that ASAP Rocky dropped his album Testing, Drake released a diss song for Pusha T that would go on to be somewhat forgotten in the record books because that was responded to by Pusha T with him revealing to the world that Drake, the sixth god, had a son that he was hiding from the world. It was a major shock in the hip hop world. We call that getting ethered when someone reveals some information or drops a song that's so monumental, so bombastic, so loud that it shakes the fabric of the music world. And this was one of those moments. And the response to that was Drake dropping one of his most commercially successful albums, Scorpion, as you can see the cover to here. We also saw Travis Scott ascend into superstardom with his most notable and high performing album, Astroworld. Cardi B had her debut album that ended up winning a Grammy this year. And this was the year that seemed to be the peak of SoundCloud rappers coming to fruition because we had XXXTentacion release his best album, his highest performing one at least, and Juice World reached his level of superstardom where the SoundCloud rappers in the hip hop and music space were being spoken about of similar relevancy to the mainstream rappers because they had such a large cult forming of people that were in their teenage years following them and being sort of rebel punk rocky elements being brought to the hip hop rap world. So when you consider this and you consider all this time that passed, of course, ASAP Rocky would want his next album to be less so just dropping music. We've got singles from him being released in this time, but he wanted a legacy play, something that would be written in the history books, especially for his career. And he's already accomplished that. At the time of this recording, it's certified. This is going to be the number one album that's been released on the new charts this given week. But amidst this time, not only was major events going on with these artists dropping music and the shifting landscape of rap into what we thought would be a SoundCloud era going forward, but this was the year that Musical.ly became TikTok, which we know would have a major impact on the way that people consume music, turning more to a snippet world that we exist in now. Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War went down this year, and the World Cup came to its conclusion with France taking home the gold. So this was a massive year culturally, but as we could see here, certainly musically. But nearly 8 years later, that's a lot of time for someone to grow and develop and figure out how to release new music in a landscape that's changed. Every 10 years, when you look at the music landscape, we're going to see something different. I can certainly tell you that at this time, all of these albums were events. And nowadays, building up an album to be an event now requires so much extra legwork. Now, even a Taylor Swift, who's considered the most commercially successful pop star right now, she has to find a way to create TikToks. Her biggest song right now, The Fate of Ophelia, has a TikTok dance associated to it. So the actual mechanisms behind how you make a successful album today is fundamentally different. Nowadays, there are estimated to be 100,000 songs released every single day. It's become so accessible to be able to buy a mic like this in your home, plug it into your computer, record some music, and easily upload it to a Spotify, Apple Music. Even easier, you can upload it on a TikTok, a YouTube account. It's so easy to distribute music today that it somehow has also become harder than ever to actually break out of the box. With 100,000 songs that you're competing with every single day, how do you make noise? As you can see here, the way that artists have been doing it in recent is trying to make the biggest moments that you could possibly create. It's no longer about just randomly deciding, hey, I'm dropping an album, tell a friend to tell a friend, and suddenly that's the number one album in the world. There are a few artists who can get that to work, but we see here Kendrick Lamar, he didn't even need to drop an album. Just a handful of songs created one of the biggest moments in music history that led up to him performing at the Super Bowl. Beyonce, someone who has been one of the most successful artists of all time, she created Cowboy Carter, a moment where people were planning months in advance outfits to dress like cowboys and cowgirls to participate in this moment, this musical masterclass of marketing that's taking place. Beyonce didn't have this degree of moments going on earlier in her career. Now, every project she releases, it needs a theme, a narrative, something that millions of people across the globe can connect to. That's the world we exist within. Even artists like The Clips, as you can see Pusha T and Malice here, they hadn't released an album in over a decade. And how do they come back? They are doing every single hip hop interview. They're on every single stage that money could buy. And suddenly they became the face of the old style of hip hop making a return. And they were able to find a level of commercial success that most people couldn't have dreamed of because they took the time to cultivate a moment. That's the world we exist within. So when we see these albums now coming down the pipeline, A$AP Rocky kicked the year off with the first major project, but right coming down the pipeline, Bruno Mars, who's already dropped his single, has sold tons of tickets to his actual live performances, and will be trying to make a moment out of his album. We already see BTS, the biggest K-pop group in the world, maybe of all time, are already crafting the world that's going to exist in a couple of months when they drop. And oh, wait, coming by surprise, J. Cole tags along and is dropping what many people believe will be his final major album. How does he make that a moment? He tells the world, this is an album that's been taking 10 years for me to make in the middle of all the music that he's been dropping. So if you want to see the best work of J. Cole's career, this is it. This is the music world we exist within, and this is the world that ASAP Rocky needed to take the time to figure out how to navigate. ASAP Rocky, already before dropping this album, established himself as not just a music icon, but a cultural one. Someone who created one of the most historically relevant groups in hip hop history with the ASAP Mob. A group that, yes, fashion was intertwined in the hip hop world. Yes, New York was major on the map for artists that it had put out. But we had been awaiting the next young group to emerge. And that ended up being the ASAP Mob, who took the city by storm, not just bringing fashion to the table in a new way, but particularly evolving the relationship between streetwear, hip hop, and the everyday kid that's just figuring out how to look fly when they dress. That was what ASAP Mob was at the forefront of. As important as the actual quality of their music was, it was also important that they were married culturally to arguably the biggest streetwear brand of all time in terms of influence with Supreme. And then you see other brands, Rick Owens, Gucci coming into play, Versace, Louis Vuitton, all of these brands became easy to roll off of the tongue for kids because ASAP Mob was representing the importance of image being married with the quality of music that you came out with. So kids were attached to them and they became the early 2010s blueprint for a modern, multidisciplinary artist collective. They were existing in tandem with Tyler the Creator's Odd Future. And the two of them were pedaling along, driving some of the biggest moments for youth hip hop music at that time. They pioneered the internet era for tastemakers in this world. But not only is he iconic for that, he was able to leverage the success in that world and being recognized for the way that they elevated the fashion industry and hip hop to becoming an actual model, the face of Vogue, GQ, Dior, you name it, he's somewhere involved to the point where he has become probably the biggest model to come out of hip hop. He has, at this point, as successful a model career as he's had a hip hop career. And that's not even to mention he's now gotten into acting as well. And somehow those two things pale in comparison to the fact that within this gap between testing and now Don't Be Dumb, ASAP Rocky elevated to an even new level of superstardom and celebrity status when he formed one of the biggest power couples that exist in the celebrity pop culture world today, when he married who he claims was one of his best friends in Rihanna, one of the biggest R&B stars in the world. And in this time, they would go on to have 3 children that completely changed his world. He's now a father. Rihanna's a mother who people still beg to put out new music. And there's a world of change that comes with being the model who's free, exploring the world in your mid to late 20s to now being a mid 30s father, learning how to navigate the world in a way that you hope inspires your children. And in some ways, will become relevant in the way that you create art going forward. But why does this all matter? Why did I give you all this context as to how we get to today? It's because today, in this time, as opposed to 2018, not only did the TikTokification music become relevant, but when we have AI now, artists that are being created, AI being able to create songs so easily, I could go onto a Suno and be able to make a song in 5 seconds. The most important thing for an artist in any discipline is their taste. Taste has become 1,000 times more important when things can be so easily recreated by AI. So today, these artists have to find a way to be somewhat of a guiding light in not outsourcing that taste to AI that's just replicating things that it's seen in the past, finding a way to not chase algorithms and not confusing noise for the impact that you want to make. And in the case of ASAP Rocky, who seemed to be uniquely prepared for this, not being afraid to experiment, and stand out. ASAP Rocky in this time cemented himself as a music, film, and fashion cultural curator, a superstar in curating aesthetics, partnerships, and narratives that exist. He became a creative director for multiple different brands. In this case, you could see Ray-Bans tapped him to be involved with that. And his ability to navigate manifesting visuals and guiding products and brand at a massive scale helps him understand what did we mention before, creating a moment. So the album arrives from a person who has been operating in the world already as a global creative lead. He just has to marry that with actually putting out the music that so many people have been begging to hear from him. And he admits that over this time, it's been frustrating. I mean, the guy was arrested in another country. In America, he was accused of assault. He, in this time, had tons of music being leaked. So not only was the good things happening, but on the other side, he was grappling with actual real life scenarios that clearly would distract you from putting together an album. But when you look at the time he took and the product we finally got with Don't Be Dumb, ASAP was able to curate a somewhat weird, stylish, high art rap world around this album, more like a museum exhibit testing out different sounds. We know that he's been iconic in the world of experimenting, having that psychedelic edge. And in this case, he tapped into working with Tim Burton to cultivate the actual visuals of the project. The future for music artists, for artists of all types, is everyone's a director now. Everyone can go and use a chat GPT or generate video with Gemini or generate music with Suno. There's so many tools that are available to us now from the palm of our hands, whether it's a phone or a computer or an iPad. Everyone has the ability to build their own worlds around the art that they create. So there's a bigger demand for what you're actually making beyond just the music. Few artists will be able to only singularly become massively successful off the music alone in this new world that we live in. So, in a world of infinite content, the winners are the ones who can edit reality into a coherent vision. Rocky helped normalize this high fashion fluency in the rap world, and he continued to build on the taste. The taste is the most important part. Why people are so willing to, despite all the pump faking and time waiting, return and want to be tuned into what ASAP Rocky put together. As you can see on the album, he had features from Doechii, the new queen of rap that's emerging, that just won a Grammy. Tyler, the Creator, who we know has been building a world for years, somewhat of the artistic counterpart that also they tend to actually have come out to be close friends. Jessica Pratt, Thundercat, these are names that he chose intentionally to help cultivate a world of artists who are willing to experiment. I mean, Doechii's known for her hardcore rap, but on this album, he has her doing somewhat of a play over a jazz beat. That's what I mean when you're taking the time to experiment. So if you have an idea that you're trying to cultivate, the time now is about building a world. In some cases, the world is more important than the music itself. I'm not going to call anyone out, but I'm sure you know of artists who have created massive worlds and massive moments. And when you listen to the music, you are not nearly as impressed as you thought you were going to be. But again, today, just disrupting the pattern, creating a world that's worth tuning into, has become more important than ever. Choosing symbols, choosing what the purpose behind your art is, and making it clear as you play the long-term game to make sure that your music truly feels like who you believe yourself to be, your essence. So don't be dumb. We come to the album today. Messiah, what do you think? Is this actually a good album? Did he execute on all these things that you're talking up for him to be this cultural curator? And what I will tell you is that in the weekend that I've had to digest the album, yes, this is the same ASAP Rocky from 2018, the one that is not afraid to try out new sounds, the one that has one of the best ears for beat selection in music. But I will admit, there were some verses that I wanted more out of him from. There were some scenarios where the vision he chose didn't align with what I would have envisioned for the song, but already I've had moments where my initial listen deferred from 2 days later. So I have a feeling that this is the type of album where it's going to age well. It is going to age like fine wine. But I can at least say I've had enough time to say I don't think that this is going to be the massive genre bending masterpiece that shatters the world of music that his mixtapes once upon a time were. But I do think this is a quality album, one that I'm appreciative of, and one that I think delivered on my expectations. I wasn't expecting him to move the sun, the moon, and the stars with this album. I expected him to test into new sounds. And the one thing I can behold pop culture certify is these album songs, these tracks are going to sound amazing live. That's something he has never neglected when it comes to picking these sounds. And he already has been able to tour over this hiatus and reiterate and reflect and be able to prove himself time and time again that his music does well live. So Don't Be Dumb, I think, is an album worth listening to if you're interested in hearing the experimental sound, hearing what an album that took nearly 3,000 days to put together sounds like. And I'd love to hear what you think, whether or not you had opinions going into this, or if this is the first time that you've ever sat and listened to an ASAP Rocky album. I'm curious how it hits you, because everyone who I've asked about ASAP Rocky's music tends to have different opinions, and especially people in New York are a little bit more biased to having felt the impact that he once upon a time had when he was in the streets running with the ASAP mob crew. But this was a cultural moment, one that I do not think will be forgotten, and one that has gotten the year off to a huge start in terms of cultural music being dropped. The next one to come down the pipeline remains to be seen. We're hearing rumors of Drake's Iceman being in the works. Bruno Mars, we already know. J. Cole is right around the corner. We are in for a huge Q1 for the world of music, so do not blink as more is coming down the pipeline. If you enjoyed listening to my breakdown of ASAP Rocky's Don't Be Dumb and the cultural relevance of it, please like, share, subscribe, follow anywhere where you get this video podcast form, and click the notification bell so you can be here with me, being able to watch the live stream as I continue to navigate it.